been to NHC, this is what it is, right here. This is awesome.
There are going to be prices coming. This room is going to be nuts tomorrow.
These players are unbelievable. This is your chance to be in the spotlight.
When all 8 tracks are in play, there's going to be bombs dropping left and right. There's going to be screaming and yelling.
Hawthorne is probably the best value out there for cash tournament play.
If you're serious about contests and you want to experience the NHC, you have to find a way to get to Hawthorne as many times as you can. You absolutely have to. The reason I think the Hawthorne contests are the best value in contests, there's no entry fee. Hawthorne is giving away seats. You have to play in those events because, you know, we all know what the cost of an online NHC seat is.
Got some free entries, come out to Hawthorne, so I made my first trip and had a great time.
If you're playing contests, Hawthorne is a great spot to be. You know, there's no take out of the contest. It's a great place for horse players to either qualify here or play in some live money contests.
And good afternoon, racing fans. Welcome to Hawthorne Racecourse for Wednesday afternoon of Thoroughbred action. Jim Miller and Emily Gullikson up here in our new, improved, awesome studio set up here back in our mezzanine level here at Hawthorne. Emily, a little bit of rain yesterday, so we're off the turf today. Walked it prior to races. I expect we'll be back on tomorrow because we needed some precipitation, just a little bit too much, a little bit too long into the day yesterday.
Yeah, it's funny because now I'm looking at the rain totally different, right? I'm looking at it going, all right, it's still 6 o'clock and it's raining. That's probably not a good sign. We'll probably be off the turf. Even though it wasn't a hard rain, it was just kind of steady. So, and walking my dog this morning and looking at the ground, I'm like, it's a little bit soft. I bet we'll be off the turf. But you're optimistic. Tomorrow we'll be back on, which is great for Thursday.
And you start, when you walk your dog, you start checking it out a little bit more. How much do I give here? And then you start thinking about 1,000-pound animals running 35 miles per hour over it, and you really have to take it into regard. We didn't get hurt too badly, actually, by scratches overall. One race scratch down to 5, but overall, really not too bad on what is a pretty good card here. A reminder for everybody, 12% takeout on win, play, show wagers each and every day here at Hawthorne. And another reminder, a week from Sunday, Hawthorne Derby Day, Horse Player Invitational Day, so we have a lot going on, Emily.
I am completely looking forward to it for both those reasons. A lot of people coming into town. I did some interviews yesterday with Ed DeRosa, talking to some of the players that are going to be there. One of the favorites, Frank Mastari, got to mention that I saw him in the winner's circle, did the meme, you know. Everybody's looking forward to it. Should be great racing, should be good weather, everything positive. And then they just ran the commercial, so I'm getting more and more excited.
Yeah, there were some guys really excited there in that commercial too. I love it, watching the guy cheering with his arms over his head like he's Rocky there running up the stairs. But I'll tell you, it's a lot of fun, really good handicappers like you mentioned. It's a great format for the contests. You have races that are mandatory that everybody has to play, then additional optional races this year. So strategy comes into it, and that's the thing that I know we like. We talked to them last year about it, but player strategy is different amongst these guys, but some players are very aggressive and do very well that way too. Yeah,
and different strategies for different formats. So we still have the Saturday tournament, which is the $500 buy-in, and that allows you a lot more freedom because everything is optional, nothing off the table. You can bet any type of wager from all the tracks we're going to offer during the time period. And then that strategy is completely different when it comes to the Invitational, which has, as you mentioned, the optional races, more optional races this year that'll kind of shake things up a little bit. And then those mandatories, but that you're only allowed that $250 until the Hawthorne Derby, which is a minimum $750.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nominations for the Hawthorne Derby, so that race should come together very well. Again, that's going to be a week from Sunday. That'll be the first day that we're in lane 1 of the turf course, so you'll have the full width of the turf course, a fresh lane for everybody to run over. So really looking forward to that. As always, the Hawthorne Invitation you can catch streamed live on our YouTube channel, so go to YouTube and go to the Hawthorne Racecourse channel, check that out. So it's an all-afternoon affair for everything going on with that. And then we'll be trying to kind of hook it up to check in here throughout the course of the day, maybe a couple of hits from Hawthorne. But it should be a really good day. Ed DeRosa, very well versed in the industry. He's been all over the place, so he knows what he's doing. You know a lot of these players. You've played against them, and you've also worked with them for interviews and that. So really, should be a fun field. I expect you're going to have a great time.
Yeah, like I said, I'm looking forward to it. I'll be down there on Saturday. I'm not sure where yet. Maybe Oak Brook, because Oak Brook's already sold out for Saturday. So I guess we'll have a packed house there. Maybe I'll try to play a little bit. We'll see.
Why not? Go out there, have a little bit of fun.
I mean, I'm not eligible, but
you can still play the races.
Well, I'll do that anyways.
Yeah.
That's a given. But maybe playing in the tournament if they'll let me, and just know that my number is you know, not one that's eligible for anything. We'll see.
But it's nice to go out and test your skills against everybody else and see how things unfold for that. The biggest thing about our contest here at Hawthorne, there's no entry fee. It's a live bankroll contest. You keep what you make. So even if you have a great day and don't win the contest, you still get to take that money home. So that's a good thing too about playing those live bankroll contests. If you have any questions, go to the website, check it out, hawthorneracecourse.com. All right, Emily, 8 races today. We're on a fast main track. All the races on the main track off the turf. We'll talk about the conditions and any distance, slight movement, I guess, for anything more than anything with the 5.5 race when we get there. But race number 1 today goes a mile and a 16, 50-cent pick 5, wagering in the first, just a 15% takeout on the pick 5. Field of 6 in the opener. And Emily, looking at the board right now, the 3, Behaving Myself, currently sits as your favorite at 3-2. I like the horse off the last couple of races, but I know you look to some horses just to the inside of that as well, too.
Yeah, I think the pace is interesting in here. I mean, we know the strategy for Behaving Himself. He's going to go out in front. He can be tough on the front end. If he gets lone, he's very tough, but he even stayed on it for a good second last time, taking pace pressure. So we know where he's going to be, but horses like Blurt has speed drawn on the outside. They're going to have to be forward. And then where'd the day go? I just thought he's another horse that has some early speed, should be a better value of the 2. So I went in that direction, and then kind of taking the opposite approach, that strategy of those 3 kind of duke it out early, who's going to pick up the pieces late, which would be the best case scenario for Pistol Box, one that just needs that that pace to run at.
Yeah, and Pistol Box with the ground saving trip along the inside should be able to just kind of wait, bide his time, see what the pace scenario is ahead, and then it's up to Victor Santiago for the timing for the move, but he should come running at him late. I'm Behaving Myself, like you mentioned, got a really easy pace in that race, 2 back, and did what you're supposed to do with an easy lead and just kick away in the end and win by 8. And the last out, they did go much more quickly up front, and I do like how the horse hung around late in the lane, ended up finishing second. I will go back to him, you're right, Blurt's kind of the key horse in this race. Watch out for Gagoots. Jim Watkins has had a very good meet, like you mentioned. Where'd the day go? Hugo Rodriguez has had a very good meet as well. So a lot of different ways that you can go here in the opener, and a couple prices there on the outside. So when we come back to this race, we'll talk about everybody when they're in the paddock for race number 1. Now, race number 2 comes off the turf course. This race was originally about 5.5 furlongs on the turf. Now it just goes to that exact distance of 5.5 on the main track. 50-cent early pick 4 wagering in the spot scratch, the 3, the 4, and the 8 in race number 2 with that field of 5. Again, you can look a few different ways, but we just talked about Hugo Rodriguez for race number 1, and he's got Dragon Drew in here, a horse that I think was going to be good on any surface today. Yeah,
absolutely. Has some early speed, but hasn't always shown it on the main track, which could be a little bit of a concern, especially with the rail draw in here, but certainly fits in terms of his current form coming into this race. Another one that stayed on best of the speed and then seemed to need the race coming off the layoff back on April 2nd. So a logical type, but I think if anything, the surface switch would probably help out Wing and Way as the number 5 horse in here. One that does have form over the main track and has that early speed. And then keying off the race to you back, that May 18th race has turned out to be a pretty strong event. Not necessarily key in the sense that you get a bunch of winners coming back, but you get horses that improved, and some of those horses had excuses, some of them had trips and tougher spots, so could be a little bit sneaky in here with that surface switch.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Winging Ways on the dirt probably is the one that should make the top. I think Dragon Drew has the rate and kind of try to run on late. The good thing for Dragon Drew is at least you have 6 main track victories. Now, a lot of those have come on a synthetic surface, but the horse wasn't just stuck on the turf. And then there's Follow the Signs, a horse that's interesting as well, because that's another one that may even be a little bit better on the main track. Those starts 3 and 4 back were pretty solid performances, but again, probably going to have to avoid just getting in a little bit of a pace battle up front too.
Yeah, it's another one of those races that I know we'll get back and talk about it. Maybe the board will give us some clues as well, who gets a little bit overlooked.
Right. Race number 3 today starts the pick 6 wager here as we go 6.5 furlongs. Illinois bred allowance optional claimers in this spot. Field of 5 as we scratch the 3, beg, borrow, and steal. But this is a good solid race. You have some horses coming in out of the third chance and White Lies and Isabella Canatella. I went the route of Isabella Canatella, but I believe you started on the outside, right, with race to the finish in here?
Yeah, when I first looked at this race, I was like, oh, anybody can win. This is a really evenly matched group, and as you mentioned, there's a lot of quality in here, but I think the edge just sides with number 6, race to the finish. A little bit of back class, and maybe just has the right running style in here, and seems legit. Other ways to go, obviously, but I just thought Becker sending out 2 in this race seems like this is the right spot for race to the finish.
Yeah, and Becker has a 2 in here, and they both run. Both are definitely in with a shot. Wildwood Posse on the inside, and then race to the finish. Isabella Canatella didn't make the top in that last out, and when that didn't occur, the horse kind of backed out of it a little bit, but Ovar was really good, and that was a much different field than what you're going to see here today. She's at her best when she shows speed. You saw that start 2 back. That was a really good performance against similar company in that race. Should be forwardly placed today. She's in for the tag for the 32,500, as is race to the finish. So we'll see if anybody jumps in for either of those. But I will look to the 5, Isabella Canatella on top in the 3rd. 4th race on the card, a big scratch here. Take out the 1. That's Move It Baby. $25,000 claimers, now winners of 2 lifetime. Field of 6 lines up. With Move It Baby out, really kind of opens things up for everybody else. I'm happy to see both Mark Crystal runners in this spot because I thought both Crystal Snow and Judy's Miss Officer had shots in this race.
Yeah, and Crystal Snow, we can talk about the trip last out, and that's the 5 horse in this race. But going back to that race, we don't have to go back too far because that race was only 6 days ago. But when people are sliding into my DMs and tell me how bad that trip is, you know it's a bit of a trip. It was better than looked at for all things considered. The horse got off slow, was stuck in traffic, had to go extra wide, made a move, and continued to gallop out. Now, part of the key that day was the class change and the surface switch, which I think moved her up despite the trip. And coming back to the main track, maybe that gives a slight edge to Judy's Miss Officer, but I get to use them both now because Move It Baby is not in the race, who would have been kind of the cinch in here. So I think both those horses, as you mentioned, are logical in this spot.
Yeah, it's an interesting race because you talk about intent. Sally Surprise scratched out of a spot last weekend to come into this spot. And then you have these 2 horses that just raced, and neither of them great performances on the turf, but they weren't bad. And like you said, it was against tougher company. I like that they both wheel back. I don't mind some horses when it's not all the time that they're constantly coming back, but when they do find that spot that they wheel back, I think they can run well. I had to go the Crystal horses as well, 1-2. I went to Judy's Miss Officer on top of Crystal Snow. But again, we'll watch the board. We'll see how things unfold as we get closer and see if we can find anything along the lines of intent there in race number 4. 5th race on the card, 12-5 claimers, now winners of 2 lifetime. They go 3/4 of a mile on the spot. 50-cent late pick 4 wagering in the 5th. Again, just a 15% take on the pick 4. Scratch the 2 Soviet Standard. They re-entered as well, so watch for that one to come right on back in the entries. Leaves you with a field of 6. Manny had another one in here, though, Emily, with the 7 T with Lemon, who could be in the mix. We both liked the horse last time. But I think Campese is a horse that could be very tough in this race as well.
Yeah, I think so too. They could just have the edge in terms of class and making that change coming out of the races at Oaklawn Park and with their solid speed figures. But again, it could come down to pace because they're likely to be tested in here in terms of that pace scenario with Chad Splash in the field. And then a couple others, Tiz Well, not necessarily one that's going to be on or needs the lead, but could sit right off that pair, which would be the best case scenario for T with Lemon. So I kind of took that, you know, front end, back end, and right in the middle approach. Using Campese on the front end could just be best of the speed with that class edge. T with Lemon we know is going to be closing late. And then Tiz Well maybe just is like right in that perfect spot. Gets first run on both those horses.
Yeah, and then you watch out for the light bulb angle on the inside with Fabricator. Just one in that last out. And again, a good barn there, who's had a very good meet, and the horse steps up. But I'm with you on Campese. This is one of those who was running those Arkansas bred races. Arkansas breds are starting to improve a little bit more just because of the amount of money that's offered to them at Oaklawn Park. And this horse did run very well in some of those races. So I like the move over here today. You do come in off the layoff. Doesn't worry me too much because you do have some work since that layoff as well. But anything Kenny Jansen sent here, it seems like it's been ready to run as well.
I was going to say, yeah, very live barn that's coming in with intent.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Campese as well in race number 5. Sixth race on the card. This comes off the turf. Goes 5/8 of a mile on the fast main track. Maidens in here. Really not hurt too badly by scratches. Take out the 5 Overdue Honor, who I thought was going to be very tough. Take out the 10 Pirate Marmalade in here, but Manny also has the 11 Ice Shard in this race. I know you and I originally on the turf, we're going to look to Overdue Honor. Where do you go to now with this race shifting over to the main track?
Yeah, I mean, again, I kind of key off in 10, as you mentioned, Manny scratching the 10 Pirate Marmalade. Maybe that's a positive for Ice Shard, because both those horses, as I mentioned in the write-up, had the similar work tabs, similar timing, similar spacing, that maybe this one is well meant right now, ready to go and meant for the main track. Maybe the other one more turf, who's to say, but keeping one in is certainly a positive sign. And then Hugh Robertson also with a pair in here. You have Simpson Bay coming off the layoff, but kind of seemed to need that coming back from last year out at Canterbury Park, and Frosted Temptation as kind of the new face in here. And some of the other horses in this field, maybe they just catch the right group, but they haven't quite shown enough in their races that I wanted to look for a new face, especially with that big scratch.
Yeah, and especially Sharp Stick tried to put the blinkers on that last out and still just kind of ran evenly. They take the blinkers right back off that race, so they're coming back here. I don't know if it will really either. I do expect the horse will take some money just because of connections and speed figure wise on the inside, and that is, I mean, the speed figures are solid. But I'm with you. I did go with some. I guess it's a race where I would look to multiple horses in here. If I'm playing a pick 4 ticket, Frosted Temptation would be on my ticket. Simpson Bay would be on my ticket. Ice Shard would be on my ticket as well. And Sharp Stick, I think, would still be on my ticket off that race. But it's a very tough race. I like that there's still 10 in this spot. 10 going 5/8 of a mile. You have to work out that trip from the outside. I do want to get a look at Ice Shard when this horse does come into the paddock, because I like the breeding, I like the meat that Manny's had, and I'll be curious to see if that horse takes any action as well. But it's a good, tough race for race number 6. And the 7th, $40,000 optional claimers. In this spot, they go 3/4 of a mile. Scratch the 1 in here, Malpie, so you have a field of 8 to line up. And again, this is a race where you can go a few different ways. Some horses that have had success over this racetrack as well. And Midnight Escape was a horse that I know you gave a little bit of a look to in this spot. I think you're going to get a price on this horse too.
Well, that's why I gave him a mention, is I just thought of the horses that were going to be forwardly placed. Seems like the less obvious of those horses. And you mentioned it's just a competitive race. A lot of these horses on their best day are right there in terms of speed figures. Some of them have their speed figures a little bit buried that can get them overlooked, and Midnight Escape being one of those. But the pace should be contentious in here. A lot of horses want to show early speed, while with Sicilian on the outside likely to show speed. Comiskey Park, he's better when he's up close to the pace. Even WW Hotshot likely to be up there. So I thought of those horses, maybe the best value, maybe even Boca Boy based on the morning line, if that sticks. Is that one you went back to? I think
no,
you had interest in him last time.
I had interest in him last time. I actually went to WW Hotshot in this spot. But yeah, like you mentioned, Midnight Escape, I mean, look at what this horse was chasing in those last couple. 21 and 3, 44 and change to the half. I mean, they were really quick paces in there. And I'll be curious to see kind of pace scenario-wise how it does set up, because Midnight Escape, I think you get a decent price. I don't know how they're going to bet Boca Boy in here, because the horse was 32 to 1 in that last out and ran a huge figure. The question is, can you repeat that figure or not, or are people going to look and see, hey, there's 3, 4 possible speed horses in here, and are you going to get a price on that horse again? So I had a tough time with the line on that one. WW Hotshot, I think they need to sit off the pace if they want to win. I don't know if they can be a part of the pace, because there's some others in here that can show some speed. But it does. It makes this race really tricky. And then you get a horse like Comiskey Park, who took forever to finally get that victory and then got it 2 starts back. And then to me, I thought just ran kind of evenly in that last out too.
Yeah, he's kind of one of those, needs a trip, needs the right field in order to get it done. And we saw that when he finally got that much belated win. But we mentioned the pace scenario, that it could be contentious in here. And WW Candy likely to get a lot of attention as people kind of see a lot of those ones, and if the race melts down. But Lycan, if I'm looking at optics plot, both those horses have big squares in quadrant 4. So one's going to be 3 to 1, the other one going to be 10 to 1, all things considered. Lycan has that back form. Again, we've talked about Basin being a little bit cold, but it's always in capable hands, a barn that can turn things around at any time. When you're getting that price compensation, and even going back to that May 25th race, you can give some excuse in terms of trip. Broke a little bit slow, had some contact at the start, was taking kickbacks, so not the most favorable scenario. And with the right pace, this horse could certainly compete.
And this is a barn that could possibly, with those second races over the track, start to wake up with some horses too, and I think you will get a price. But it's a very solid field there for race number 7. And the finale off the turf, mile and a 16th on the fast main track. Jackpot High Fives building, $106,517. Field of 9 in the last, 15 non-3 company here, and again, with the shift in surfaces, it's going to make things interesting. A lot of these horses have run on the main track. Did you change anything handicapping-wise on this race because of the shift in surfaces, or are you kind of sticking to the way you looked at it anyway?
I mean, a little bit. You know, Jealous Eyes is, I would expect to be the favorite in here. It's this one that you have in the mix as well. A horse that has the solid speed figures both on the turf and on the main track, and those numbers kind of stand out in this field. So running back to that and everybody else holding their form could just be a tough customer in this race. But looking through, one of the things that with Optics Grid is I can filter for surface.
Sure.
So I was messing around with those filters and just kind of seeing where everything pops up. And a horse that I was interested in here, Memphis Prayer, actually has some decent form that's on the main track, and I thought his turf form was buried, and they stay in the race, so that's a positive sign. We already mentioned Hugo Rodriguez sending out some live runners, so I would definitely use that horse at a price. So 6-9 in there, definitely horses. Downgrade a little bit on Command Central, maybe. Still a long shot in here, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe maybe would have been a little bit better, especially at that distance of 1 mile and a 16th. Modifier is the one that I end up with regardless of surfaces. I really like the race on the turf two-back. I know you did as well. You'd picked the horse that day. The maiden breaker I thought was a pretty good effort here back near the start of the meet as well. Settled back a little bit, ran on late, but you have Pinballer who's going to show some speed. Forward Curve is going to show some speed, and I think Over Calendar probably shows some speed. So with that, I think there's enough pace to run into, so we'll see if anybody can come running at him late. But Modifier, the one I'm going to look to, and hopefully we get a little bit of price on that one.
I would imagine, because you know, outside of Jealous Eyes, I think everybody else will be probably pretty square.
I would have to think so, yeah. And Jealous Eyes, just because the race has been consistent against a little bit better, you have to expect that they're going to take some money as well. And we'll have to see how the track plays too. It's a track that, despite being listed as fast, it still has a little bit of moisture in it. It will continue to dry throughout the course of the day, but it's played very evenly, I think, over the course of the last couple of weeks now that things have warmed up a little bit and you get that tailwind instead of a headwind. So similar racing conditions today, and we will see how things unfold. That's how we see the 8 races today. We're going to wheel back to race number 1 as we're 15 minutes to post for the opener. Field of 6 to line up here in race number 1. These are $5,000 claimers. Offer win, play, show at the 12% takeout. Exacta, try, super, double, pick 3, and pick 5 wagering. From that field of 6, you're looking right there, Emily, at the 3, Behaving Myself. We'll start with that one. 9-5 favorite on the board. You figure the horse is going to show speed, and the biggest question is whether or not this one will have some company up front today.
Yeah, that is the big question. He has been holding his form. It was the right move going 2 back, where he spaced out the field, made that easy lead, was able to continue lone, lacked the lead change, took a little bit of pace pressure last out, but stayed on well to hold second. Maybe those 2 races, now that he's coming back again in 2 weeks, especially if they take pace pressure, might impact him. And I also see he's got the front wraps back on. It seems like they're kind of trading front wraps off on every other start, but he did have the front wraps on for that win 2 back.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, I mean, he's definitely been after it at the races this year. This is going to be a 7th start on the meet, but you know what? He's running rather well. He's found the board in each of those last 4. I'm with you. He has to go. He got the very soft pace up front 2 back and ran away with it, was pushed along that last out and still ran on. So Behaving Myself as a horse that definitely can be in the mix, but your favorite right now sitting at 9-5. Now you look next to that one with the 2 horse. That's Where'd the Day Go. We talked a lot about Hugo Rodriguez throughout the course of this card. He had a couple of victories on Sunday's card, and looking at Where'd the Day Go, this is a horse that was claimed 2 starts back, tried the grass in that last out, and now they're back to the level of the claim. But I think the horse fits in here.
Yeah, absolutely. The numbers have actually improved in those 2 most recent starts, going back to that win on April 13th, which I thought was a pretty taxing effort because he was another horse that took pace pressure that day, stayed on as the best of the speed, and again, the numbers have improved, and was holding his form on the main on the turf last year out at Canterbury Park, and has been able to pair up his numbers, maybe even improve them on the dirt. So I give him a shot in here. Another one that he should be sitting right off Behaving Myself, unless Behaving Myself tries to space out the field and go clear. But I don't know if that's possible with the number 6 in the field, Blurt, who's probably going to have to show a little bit of speed. But again, I thought that was maybe a scenario where Where'd the Day Go would just kind of sit with that first run.
Yeah, and if those 2 go out there and Behaving Myself and Blurt, you're right. This one just tucks in right behind Waits, and with that long Hawthorne stretch, everything could line up very nicely. So see how things unfold for Where'd the Day Go. The 1 horse is Pistol Box. Pistol Box is 5-2. The 8-year-old gelding in here put together a nice string of races here last fall, has made 3 starts here on the meet, and the last race was the improved effort. Finally got some pace to chase because the first 2 starts really didn't have much to run after.
Yeah, and that's been his challenge, right, is not having that right pace scenario, and it's still a challenge in here. Anytime you have a deep closer, not only do they have to have the pace to run at, but they've got to have the timing, You've got to have the track, being able something that you could close on. And so those are all things that you can consider. This horse is obviously certainly capable. He's run some of the faster numbers in the field, some of the faster numbers over this course and distance. It's just whether all those other factors are going to come into play in order for him to get back to those top effort in order to win.
Yeah, and you tend to wonder, I mean, just it's only 40 yards more, but the difference from a mile 70 to a mile 16th can help a horse who's closing very quickly late. So we'll see how things unfold for Pistol Box. Now the 4 horse here at 5-1 is Gagoots. And Gagoots is a horse that I know you and I both looked at in that last out, and the horse just kind of ran evenly in there. But trainer Jim Watkins has had himself a really good meet. 24-44 finding the money on the meet. Javier Tavares back in the saddle. And Gagoots, another one where much like Where'd the Day Go, if the 2 speed horses hook up, this is a horse that should be able to enclose a little bit more ground in the lane.
Yeah, and currently sitting at 5-1, which is part of the reason I just upgraded, some of the horses based on number. But I think that's fair for a horse that could get the right trip. Distance-wise, I'm not sold that the more ground is going to be the better, so it will come down to getting that right trip in order to kind of compensate that. Sometimes horses too, it's not necessarily the distance, right? We talk about the Belmont, they can all get it, but who can get it the fastest?
Yep.
That type of thing, right? That if he's in the right field and getting the right trip, he certainly could, but because it perhaps isn't the most ideal distance, does have to have so many of those other factors in his favor.
Yeah, and probably the reason you're seeing that 5-1 price right now on Gagoots. The 6 horse here is Blurt. Blurt's sitting at 11-1. We've talked about this horse numerous times for the fact that Blurt could be a part of that pace scenario early on. And I guess the question is whether or not, 1, Blurt goes, but 2, if they don't go and they stalk, if that's going to be the more preferred trip for this horse to have a shot to hang around late.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes the outside post is an advantage with this type of race scenario because it really doesn't give them a lot of options. They kind of have to get into the race right from the start. And once you get into the race, there's kind of no going back, especially with horses at this level, right? You don't want to see them start and stop or try to rate or anything like that. So I think if they go to the outside, they know their main rival is behaving myself towards their inside to get position. And if that one does try to separate, I mean, they've got to kind of go. So they've got to keep that pressure on. So in that sense, I think it's probably the draw would help. And another horse that you can go back in his form, going back to those races at Remington Park and even some efforts at the fairgrounds that fit number-wise.
Yeah, 13-1 right now, completely overlooked. And then lastly, the 5 is Cramden. Cramden's 21-1. Emmanuel Giles aboard this round today. Cramden raced well here last fall, just hasn't been able to get into that form again this year. I guess the question is, what do you do? Do you determine it? Do you give up on the form, or do you say, hey, eventually this horse is going to start to figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, last out, you can make an excuse in there because it was that spaced out field. He had trouble at the start. This is that race out at FanDuel Park. He was on a quick turnaround that day, saved ground, lost ground inside, and then they didn't ask the horse for run, so it could have been the ship, it could have been the timing, it could have been the race shape. There's so many things, and the fact that they come back in here, being cold on the board, maybe not the most positive sign, but even one of his better races, I mean, he's another horse that we kind of know him to come from off the pace, but actually his win at Hawthorne back in December was on the lead. So maybe they try to say, maybe that'll wake him up a little bit, just try to put him in the race, try something new.
And that's the thing, give them a little bit of confidence, not having to look like they're chasing a bunch of horses, kind of put them out there with just daylight in front of them and see how far they go. So regardless, field of 6 here in the opener, we've covered everybody but it is. It's a good competitive race in race number 1. We'll see what the pace scenario is, but in the first we offer win, play, show, exacta, try, super, double pick 3 and pick 5 wagering. Heading out shortly for race number 1. Good luck.
Racing fans, for those of you just arriving here, once again, other changes in your pick 5 races. A reminder, we are off the turf today. All the races on the real dirt track. Track is fast. We are off the turf. Track is fast. First race starts the rolling daily doubles, rolling pick 3s, the 50-cent pick 5. There are no jockey changes, scratch or avoids, no changes in the first. Second race starts the 50-cent early pick 4. It's off the turf. They'll go 5.5 furlongs on the dirt track, which is fast. Scratch 3, remember the main. Scratch 4, Grand Hideaway. Scratch 8, Kennesaw. Second race, scratch 3, remember the main. Scratch 4, Grand Hideaway. Scratch 8, Kennesaw. Third race starts at pick 6. Scratch 3, Beg, Borrow, and Steal. Scratch 3, Beg, Borrow, and Steal. The fourth race today, scratch 1, move it baby, scratch 1, move it baby. 2, Linerkey will carry 1 pound over the program weight. 3, Mud Hut will race as programmed. Number 4, Sally Surprise carries 1 pound over the program weight. The fifth race starts at late pick 4, scratch 2, Soviet Standard, scratch 2, Soviet Standard. 3, Chad's Flash carries 2 pounds over the program weight. I remind you, 1 carryover pool. The 8th race today has a carryover of $106,517. 8th race off the turf, no changes. Jackpot high five carryover, $106,517. Music, maestro. Coming on the track for the Wednesday opener, they go mile and 1/16 on a track listed as fast. Field of 6, there are no changes. Win, play, show, exacta, trifecta, superfecta. This race starts the rolling daily doubles, rolling pick 3s, the 50-cent pick 5. Here's the field, 1 pistol box, Victor Santiago riding. Number 2, Where'd the Day Go, Julio Felix in the saddle. 3 is Behaving Myself with Olaf Hernandez up. 4, Gagoots, Javier Tavares. Here's 5, Cramden with Emmanuel Giles aboard. And number 6, Blurt, Alexis Centeno. We'll bring him to the gate, and they'll all be there in about 5 minutes. Kick off the Wednesday program. Once again, we are off the turf. All the races on the real dirt track, and that track is listed as fast. 5 minutes for the first at Hawthorne. Racing fans, those of you who may just be arriving, still time to wager on today's first race. We do thank you for joining us, wherever it may be across the betting network. We are off the turf today. All the races will be on the real dirt track. Track is fast, off the turf. All the races on the dirt track, which is fast. The 8th race, Jackpot High Five Carryover, $106,517. 8th race, Jackpot High Five Carryover, $106,517. Once again, off the grass today. All the races on the real dirt track, and that track is fast. They're moving towards the gate. Less than a minute. Better hurry. Racing fans are at the starting gate for today's first race, first of 8 on the Wednesday program. Once again, off the turf, all the races on the dirt track. Track will be fast all day long. They're loading up for race 1. 6-pack of runners that kick off the Wednesday program. They're loading up at Hawthorne. Last 2 to go in, Behaving Myself and Blurt. Waiting now for Blurt. They're all on the gate. They're up and running. Blurt out very fast for the lead, coming away well. Behaving Myself towards the rail. Where'd the day go? Cramden, Pistol Box, Gagoots complete the field of 6 as they make their way into the first turn. Behaving Myself leads the way up on the outside. Blurt a challenging second. It's a 3-4 length gap. Where'd the day go is third. Another 7, 8, 9 lengths now. Cramden moving 3 wide in the 4th. Then it's Pistol Box and Gagoots as they begin their journey on the backstretch. The opening quarter, 23.43. And on the mid backstretch they go. Behaving Myself on the inside. Blurt on the outside. Heads apart for the lead. Still a 4-length gap to Where'd the day go. And then it's double digits back to the trailing trio. They are Gagoots, Cramden, and Pistol Boxes trailing more than 20 lengths behind the embattled duo. And they move around the far turn. Behaving Myself holds firm. Blurt on the outside, losing a bit of ground. Second, Where'd the day go? Trying to gain on the top 2. Still a long gap. Gagoots is in 4th. And then it's Pistol Box and trailing Where'd the day go? Around the turn, they're in the stretch. Behaving Myself drifting out on the turn. It's Behaving Myself in the 4 or 5 path, still with the lead. Towards the inside, trying to fight back second. Blurt from far back. Here comes Gagoots, closing ground on the outside. 4th, 3rd, now 2nd. Inside the final furlong, Behaving Myself leads the way. Gagoots is gaining with each and every stride on the outside. Here comes Gagoots, and Gagoots is taking the lead. It's Gagoots winning it. Behaving Myself second, and then it was Where'd the day go on the inside 3rd. Cramden was 4th. In today's first race, 4, Gagoots finished first. 3, Behaving Myself second. 2, Where'd the day go was 3rd. And 5, Cramden 4th. 4325 is posted. It's unofficial 146.11, mile 116th, fast track at Hawthorne. Returning the unofficial winner for Gagoots. Gagoots owned by Dennis and Stephen Pohl. James Watkins, the winning trainer. Javier Tavares, the winning rider. Still unofficial. Today's first race is official. Running time 146.11. It's official. Racing fans, we have additional overweights to announce. A couple of new overweights have come in. If you turn to the fifth race, number 2, Tizwa will now carry 2 pounds over the program weight. Fifth race 5, Tizwa, 2 pounds over the program weight. 6, Campese will now carry 1 pound over the program weight. 6, Campese